So we are the Filmmaker's Cookbook, a podcast where we turn your favorite films into recipes, helping you expand your cinematic diets. Hosted by myself, Michelangelo White, and my friend Charles.
Hi, I'm Charles.
Today's movie, we're going to break down Airplane, the 1980s comedy movie. You said earlier before we started recording that this movie has been talked about so much, but I feel like a lot of people I know have never heard of this movie.
Really?
Yeah, I was talking to some friends earlier this week, and then they're like, I've never heard of Airplane.
I feel like Airplane is the movie that I hear most often when somebody's like, they don't make good comedies anymore. Not like Airplane. Like, you weren't even born when that came out. And have you actually seen it?
Yeah.
And it's not that it's bad. I think it's great. It's one of the best comedies ever.
The Airplane? The Airplane is?
Yes. It has, like, in terms of number of jokes, it's insane. Somebody did a tally, and I don't know how accurate this is, but this is counting like everything from visual gags that are happening in the background to like the one-liners that people are giving. Mm-hmm. They said there's like 900 jokes or something.
Wow.
Which is amazing in an hour and a half movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of why it is still something that people can watch despite many of the jokes not aging very well. Because so many jokes, it just is like, you can find something you can laugh at.
Give me a summary of the story, Chase.
All right. The spoof comedy takes shots at the slew of disaster movies that were released in the 70s. When the passengers and crew of a jet are incapacitated due to food poisoning, a rogue pilot with a drinking problem must cooperate with his ex-girlfriend turned stewardess to bring the plane to a safe landing.
And comedy ensues.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Interestingly, going off of the Rotten Tomatoes website again, it has a 97% fresh on the tomato meter from the critics, and the critic consensus is, though unabashedly juvenile and silly, Airplane is nevertheless an uproarious spoof comedy full of quotable lines and slapstick gags that endure to this day. But it has an 89% audience score, which is one of the few films where the audience score is lower than the critic score, which is fascinating.
I feel like probably a lot of people nowadays probably reviewed it and kind of gave it a low score.
I mean, as far as comedies go, I think it is sort of unique and emblematic of a certain type of broad comedy movie. It's probably the most broad and the most just pure comedy film I think you could have. There's nothing deep or serious at all going on here. It is just all jokes.
Instead of just like talking about the film more, do you want to like transition into food and start talking about things and then like maybe breaking it down to food from here?
Well, so what flavors did this film give you?
Personally, I feel like overall it was primarily a happy film. Definitely, it's a comedy and it did a good job at being a happy film. I don't know. I think that was discussed a little bit in terms of like some of the jokes might be distasteful to nowadays viewers. Like I feel like if I was to show this movie to someone for the first time, like I might be sweating a little through some of the jokes, being like, oh man, they must be thinking like this is like a terrible joke, and I'm here kind of like grinning at it still. So I think probably those two emotions. What do you think?
I feel like comedy is kind of a unique mixture of suspense and surprise and happiness. So I kind of landed on happy and surprise as the core emotions, because it's like a happy surprise at the end of each scene. Actually, at the end of each line, just about, when you notice all the different jokes going on. Mm-hmm. Or even if you notice one small detail in the background, like for some reason I can't stop laughing at the part with the Mayo Clinic, and you see all the jars of mayo behind the doctor, and it's just so dumb.
Yeah.
And the heart is bouncing around, and it is just perfectly stupid.
I can see it. I can see surprise. So I would say that in like happiness is like a sweet, and I would say surprise like a spicy, and I would say fear would be like a bitter taste. So you're saying it's like a sweet and spicy film. Definitely sweet, 100%. I think that's like, and I think the surprise and the disgust there was like, for me especially, it was like I felt like 90% happy, sweet, and then like a little bit disgust, sour. But I can also see it being surprised, like a little spicy. So I think definitely the core flavor is sweet.
Mm-hmm.
You agree?
I agree.
Okay, I can see that. Interesting. So should we? That's like our core of this dish of this movie would be like a. Those are the
A
flavors that we're
sweet
going.
and spicy that turns sour because of age.
Ooh, okay. I kind of thought of like cheese almost.
A cheese.
I'm just gonna throw it out there. I'm almost thinking of like a pie at this point because I feel like pies are very classic, or like a sandwich, but I don't know, like a sweet sandwich.
For some reason, I feel like this has to be something that's like super overly sweet because it's pure comedy. There's
Mm-hmm.
like nothing drama. There's nothing deep or darker to ground it in a more complex flavor.
At no point in the film are you ever thinking like, oh, are they gonna make it or whatever? It's just like it's always going to be just like another joke. So I think yeah, it definitely is overly sweet, and I think that is the core flavor there. But maybe should we see what else is going on here and kind of see where this dish kind of progresses.
Sure.
The movie was written and directed by David and Jerry Zucker and Jim Abraham.
I think it's Abraham's.
Okay. So late one night, these friends they would record late night TV for the commercials to make skits for another movie they were making. And then they just happened to record a movie called 0 Hour, which is like a movie that came out in the 1950s. That is the exact same premise. Ex-pilot who wife leaves him and his son go on the plane. The only thing is they don't have a kid in the 1980s airplane spoof movie. But they go onto the plane, and the whole thing happens. They eat the fish. That's bad. They get sick, and he has to fly the plane. And he has to land it. They watch the film, and they say this is like a perfect film, structurally speaking. And they just had so much fun with it that they wanted to add jokes to it, and that's kind of how the movie came about.
It's literally a shot-for-shot remake
Mm-hmm.
in certain scenes.
Yeah.
Many of the lines are drawn directly from that movie, which is why IMDb actually credits the original writers of 0 Hour as uncredited screenwriters for this film, for Airplane.
Yeah, there's like videos on YouTube even that you can look that compare like a side-by-side comparison of the two films, and they're like so almost exact. Yeah, and they bought the rights. They were told that they can use it, but they still bought the rights to the film and the script for a whopping $2,500.
I feel like it's a steal.
Yeah, I mean,
Airplane's budget was $3.5 million, and it ended up making like $185 million.
yeah, definitely.
So they definitely made a good call there, I think.
And I will say also that a lot of the elements, going back to David and Jerry Zucker and Jim Abrahams, I think they are the core flavor also. Like they're the ones adding all the flavor to this movie. Because like they wrote the jokes, they decided all the directing, and they casted everyone. They did everything. Like they did most of the work, and you can definitely kind of see all their flavors being implemented into the movie. A lot of the stuff is just like from those three core players.
I think the larger direction is from those three, but in my research, what I found was that there was a lot of collaboration actually between the many actors and three directors, and also kind of interesting with the three directors because at this time it was not really allowed to have more than one person directing, and there's a bit of a joke that I think Jim Abrahams was going to put David Zucker and Jerry Zucker in his name so that they could all be credited, and it would just be Jim, David Zucker, Jerry Zucker, Abrahams directed this so that they could all three get credit.
I kind of wish they did that because that would have been funny. Oh, you know what? Actually, that kind of makes me think of
and
like
then it
chai.
kind of goes flat after a while.
Like a chai.
A chai. Oh, like chai tea.
Like a chai tea has cinnamon and cardamom, Cardamom's kind of a spicy
Mm-hmm.
like element to a chai, like a not like a like Starbucks chai or something like that, like a very westernized chai of just like it's so overly sweet, which possibly could be, but but still holds that like cardamom flavor in it.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think the cardamom is what makes the spiciness to a chai tea originally. So maybe like a chai tea flavored cake or something like that, even maybe.
Mm.
Because I'm not thinking of it as like a drink. Actually, I'm still thinking of it as like a dessert. It feels like a dessert movie.
That's what I keep thinking too. Is like a dessert or like a candy or something.
Yeah, like after you put the kids to sleep and you lay down on the sofa and you put on Airplane and have a slice of cake or pie or some kind of dessert. One of my favorite jokes in the movie is when they're taking off.
Over, Roger.
Over.
Victor,
Roger,
Vector.
Roger. What's your Victor? What's your vector, Victor? Yeah, it's very tongue-in-cheek, wordplay, comedy, pun.
It's just so stupid.
I think that the acting also lends to that stupidness of it because there are all these like non-comedic actors who are playing like a straight role but are saying like comedy stuff and like making jokes.
The fact that they got all of these actors who are known for doing all of these very serious roles to say just the dumbest thing, but in the most serious, matter-of-fact way, is really, I think, what grounds the comedy and makes it so funny. But I also think another thing about this that makes them all work is the fact that they are happening so fast and juxtaposed against a slew of other jokes. So you're barely catching them before another one is being hurled at you.
Yeah, definitely. There's so many jokes that even this time watching around that I like didn't catch. I actually never even realized that mayo scene, like all the mayo. Like I remember the heart jumping around, but I always remember like them saying like the mayo and that whole like sandwich joke they say in there. Like I don't even remember that.
Hold the mayo.
Yeah, hold the mayo. Like
ham on one. Hold the mayo.
Yeah. Like
It's
those.
so good.
Yeah, those like I didn't even catch that, and I was like, what? And then and now watching like, oh, there's a bunch of mayo just behind him on the shelves. Like those are just like such like there's so many jokes going on at once that like
that you miss, which is part of why you're able to rewatch this movie too, is because there's so much that you pick up on the second, third, fourth time you've seen it, which I think is why a lot of people really enjoy it as like almost like a cult film, because it is so rewatchable.
Yeah, I agree. And I think
it's almost a guilty pleasure.
Yeah. Maybe that's like also going to that sweet happiness is that like you can't always be eating sweets. It's like that guilty pleasure at the end of the night after like a hard day's work or something like that, like just enjoying a slice of cake or a cookie or something like that, like it doesn't have a lot of nutritional value to it besides it being just something fun to do. Like why do you eat sweets? Not because it's healthy, but because it's tastes good and it's fun to eat.
I feel like though this is sort of breaking our nutritional model a little bit, because I don't think this is a bad film to watch in terms of like giving you variety.
But I think cookies or sweets are also not nutritionally valuable, but not saying that they're not a good thing. It doesn't fit in a diet, but it's also like even a lot of diets or people have, like very strict diets where they're eating a lot of lean meats and a lot of vegetables. There's always like that cheat meal or that guilty pleasure, like that one moment within the hard work of like being able to, have something special. And I think it fits in that nutritional diet, not as like a thing that you can have every day, but something that can fit in occasionally to just make the mundaneness of a nutritional value, like a nutrition, like having some more deeper meaning, I guess. Like adding something to to look forward to, I guess.
It's another variety. If you're only watching these kinds of films, I think you're missing out on lots of other food groups that you could be enjoying.
We talked about the actors. They added, would you say that's the spiciness to it?
I think it is because it's the straightness of their comedy that is, and the deadpanness of their comedy that is allowing you to have those moments of surprise, because you don't expect a very serious performance to then conclude with somebody explaining what a hospital is, literally.
And like Leslie Nelson, for instance, the doctor, I will say that like another element to it, also they hired Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, a real life athlete, and he was playing in this movie, which is kind of, they're making fun of, I think, in the original 0 Hour film, the co-pilot was also an athlete, and that's kind of why they hired Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought they were just making fun of all of the string of movies that had athletes play randomly just to be like a famous person in a movie to draw eyes.
No, yeah, I mean, I think even to this day,
I heard that in my research, the child actor that is questioning him, apparently he wasn't aware that he was going to get yelled at by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he was literally scared in that moment when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar threatens him.
Doesn't he like grab him too?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
He says that wasn't acting. He was actually terrified.
That makes sense, because I was like, that kid generally did look terrified in that scene. That's funny. I didn't know that. I also want to say really quickly about the sound. That's not really music, but it's like the sound design. I think. Did you notice that it's a jet plane, but you hear propellers? Whenever you see the actual plane, you hear propellers running, not like a jet engine.
I did not notice that, but that's hilarious.
Yeah, because I was watching the original one, 0 Hour, not I guess the one it was based off of, and that one uses like a propeller plane, and they actually wanted to have a propeller plane for this movie, but they ended up having to use a jet plane, but they still decided to do the propeller sound effects instead of like a jet plane sound effects, which I think is just like,
it's just another meta joke.
Yeah, it's definitely like those small things are just like little things you can find each time you view it, which is just kind of really hilarious.
And something literally you would never pick up on your first viewing. You would only pick it up on your third, fourth, fifth viewing.
The overall flavor of this movie is happy in terms of it's really sweet, and it's spicy because it's a little surprising.
And maybe it didn't age that well entirely, but because it's a comedy, I feel like you can forgive it a little bit, as long as it makes you laugh a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, if a comedy makes you laugh, I think it achieved its job, right? Mm-hmm. So what kind of food do you think this would be? We kind of have a lot of...
I like the idea of like a chai latte cake. I feel like that could be cool.
What if it was like a tiramisu, but instead of coffee, it was chai?
A chai tiramisu. Okay, I'm into it. I feel like it needs to be spicier, because I feel like it's literally making fun of almost everyone.
Okay, like a whipped cream that has cardamom in it, like ground up cardamom. Because I feel like the cardamom is pretty spicy. Mm-hmm. Like not spicy, like hot spicy, but it has a lot of spice and a lot of flavor and a lot of kick to it.
Mm-hmm. It's bold. It needs to be a bold flavor.
Yeah. And I think cardamom definitely achieves that.
So a chai latte tiramisu with a cardamom whipped cream.
Mm-hmm. Maybe even like pistachios on there too.
What did those add?
I don't know, some nuttiness, you know, like it's a nutty movie.
It is a nutty movie.
Um, I'm also like thinking of the imagery of it. Like I'm seeing like a cake that's like a tiramisu in style, so it's like a little dark and like chocolatey almost in a way. In terms of how tiramisu is, like it's, you know, tiramisu is dipped in coffee, and that's how you make it, right?
I have no idea. I feel like it needs to be stupid. Like, what's a stupid element?
Well, I feel like
Or it needs to
tiramisu
be like
is
a parody of a dessert. Like you know, like those little like royal finger cakes.
no. I don't know what you're talking. You mean like lady fingers? Is that what you're talking about?
No, like they're
Royal fingers?
they're like little cakes that kings and queens eat.
Okay. I'm not sure I'm following you, but all right. Okay. So it's gonna be a parody of a dessert.
Yeah, but it's very sweet. Or like maybe since it's a disaster movie,
Mm-hmm.
what is like a bitter thing that we're making surprise? Because like disaster movies are all about like fear and suspense. We're going to turn it around and make it actually a sweet thing.
Well, if I go back to pies for a second, I'm thinking also like cherry pie could possibly be because like cherries are sweet but also like tart and bitter a little bit, and then maybe
Hmm.
like a cherry pie where, you know, it's like those cherries you buy at like the supermarket that you put in like a Shirley Temple or something. Um, they're like candied cherries in a point where it feels like you're eating a fake cherry, not really a real cherry. That could be a thing, or possibly even like a um,
What if it's a dessert sandwich?
dessert sandwich. Dessert
Like you
sandwich.
have cake bread.
Oh, okay, wait. Kind of like those like Japanese candies or something that are like a candy hamburger.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about, but not like jellies.
Oh, okay.
But I mean,
So
it could be jellies. I don't know. But like something that is unexpectedly sweet, but with a little kick.
so it looks like a sandwich,
Like you know
or is
those
it actually
like those
bread?
surprise foods where you like cut into something and you're like, oh my god, it's a cake,
Oh yeah, so it's like a baby, the shape of a baby, and it looks like a baby, and then you cut
and
into
then
it.
you
It's
cut it in
actually a
half.
cake.
We don't condone cutting babies in half on this channel,
Um,
but like it's a sandwich. It looks like a sandwich, and then you bite into it, and then it's completely sweet
gotcha.
with like a
Okay,
little spiciness.
so it's like a
I like the flavors of
yeah.
chai with like cardamom, and then what could we do to make it it could be like angel food cake bread, like two slices of angel food cake. What would be in the center of the sandwich?
You're just describing a cake though. Like cake has layers. Is it? Is it not?
Just go with it.
Okay. So it's a. Is it like a mini? It's like a hand-sized kind of thing, like you were making like a
No, I'm thinking like
sourdough.
a literal sandwich. I want this to be as stupid as possible because that's how I feel about this movie.
Okay, I'm following you.
Like, could you do like a fruit roll up that looks like pastrami?
Okay, and then it's like a slice of cake that looks like bread.
Yeah. So like layers of
Okay, sorry.
cherry.
Okay, I'm thinking of like a French dip.
Okay.
So you know how like there's the French dip,
Mm-hmm.
and then you dip it into the au jus, which is the sauce, right? You dip it in the sauce, and that gives it a lot of flavor. So I'm thinking of like a sweet version of that, where instead of like a sauce, it's like a chai tea,
Interesting. Okay.
and the sandwich is the cake, and maybe it's in a sandwich shape or whatnot. Kind of trying to figure out how that would work. Almost like kind of you would with a donut. You would dip a donut into coffee and eat it. Maybe it's like, and then maybe it's like a chai cake with like a cardamom whipped cream topping and like fruit roll up, leather like fruit inside of it.
Fruit leather.
Yeah, kind of
like
thing.
Meat.
Like a layer in between there to make it look like it's like a cake.
What are we gonna do for greens?
Well,
I think
that's the pistachio. Pistachios are green. You can have like green pistachio in there.
Maybe like pistachio.
Like a pistachio whipped cream or something like
that. Not whipped cream, but what is that kind of pistachio fondant.
Okay.
So that you can kind of make it look like green leaves or something.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. Yeah. And then
the like spread on the inside, that would be like mayo or whatever you would put on it. Would
probably be mustard, right? Usually in like a pastrami or like that kind of sandwich. So that could be...
That could be your whipped cream thing that you're talking about.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then what else do we need? Cheese.
I mean, I think you can do either different fondants or like different creams with different flavors of like a cinnamon. Cinnamon maybe could be like a mustard, like that, the mustard that's not really crushed. It's like the seedy mustard. You know what I'm talking about?
Sure.
Okay. So it's like a mustard that's not like a yellow mustard or like a Dijon that's like a silky consistency, but it's like still seedy from the mustard seeds.
Mm-hmm.
That could be like a cinnamon kind of cream or something, and then the other, like the cheese, could be cardamom or something. Like it could be different elements in there, right? I don't know.
I guess it could just be like different flavored fondants.
Yeah.
Like I like the idea of a green pistachio fondant and then like a cinnamon, like a maybe just a normal flavored fondant with like cinnamon flakes to make it look like pepper jack cheese.
Oh yeah, like it's like grated or like ground cinnamon that's been added to it. Yeah, I do like that. Or even crushed pistachios.
Sure.
Like something like those. Yeah. So
do pistachios and chai tea go together? I have no idea.
I don't know. I think the imagery for that to me just sounds interesting. Like it sounds appealing.
And then it's literally like a dessert sandwich, which is the dumbest thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you can make it look as close to a sandwich as possible.
Yeah.
And it's literally a parody of a sandwich.
Yeah, definitely. So you have like a French dip pastrami sandwich. Do we care which one it is?
No. So what are we going to call this? This is like the in-flight meal, right?
Okay. The in-flight dessert meal? Or...
like this is the Mile High sandwich.
Gotcha. The Mile High sandwich.
What is, trying to make think of a joke that is kind of similar to the hospital line, like.
What is a hospital?
What does she say? She doesn't say what is a hospital. She says what is that?
What's that? And then he says
it's a building with.
It's a building with a bunch of lights or something. I forgot what he says.
I can't remember the line either.
But that's not important right now. Yeah.
Well, insert here once we figure all that out. This is where that section will be.
Mm-hmm. I think just for a placeholder, I'm just gonna randomly just say something.
Okay.
Or like, let's just really quickly decide on. So it's pretty much a parody on a pastrami sandwich with a dip, but instead of a pastrami sandwich, the ingredients are replaced with sweet ingredients, a cake top and bottom with different fondants. Fondants?
Sure.
Is that what it's pronounced?
Fondant.
Fondants. Inside, and different ingredients, sweet and spicy. You got some cinnamon, some cardamom, a lot of sugar. It's overly sweet, and you dip it into juice, and which is going to be a sweet but a little bit spicy chai tea, which will bring together this dish that is a comedy movie that is parody of a very serious film. And yeah, I think it's, that's it, I think. Well, that's a recipe, and I hope you enjoyed. I hope if you haven't watched Airplane, watch Airplane. And this dish, I think we did a good job. I think I can visualize this dish being this movie. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed listening to us. And
come back next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Filmmaker's Cookbook. The show is hosted and produced by Charles Helbeck and myself, Michelangelo White. This episode was edited by myself, Michelangelo White, and the show logo was created by Yumi White. The music for this episode was provided by T Bless and The Professionals. If you guys like this episode, we have another show called Concession Impressions that you should check out. That's going to be a weekly show, while Filmmaker's Cookbook is going to come out every 4 weeks. We hope you enjoy. The next episode is going to be dropping on August 29th. We hope you look out for it. Concession Impressions from here on out is going to be releasing every Friday, so we hope you look out for that as well. Hope you guys have a great week. We'll see you guys next time, either on Concession Impressions or Filmmaker's Cookbook. See you around.